Sunday afternoon, we get a report from CNBC that it appears as though Endeavor is going to purchase WWE. Now, Endeavor, of course, is the parent company of the UFC. Now, when this comes out on an outlet like CNBC, it's fait accompli, as they say in the business. And I got to tell you guys, I was having strong UFC 200 vibes reading all of this. I mean, here we are on the day after a massive event, much like UFC 200 back in 2016, and we get this news that the entity that is holding this massive event is going to be sold, in probably or is already sold, and will have new ownership and all that stuff. And this is likely going to come out on the Monday. It was almost exact same thing that happened at UFC 200. UFC 200 happened on a Saturday night. There were strong rumors all weekend that a sale was imminent to Endeavor, which is obviously the common link here. And then Sunday, we start to hear more and more. And then by Sunday night, Lorenzo Fertitta does an interview with a local Las Vegas media outlet. And then by Monday morning, the company is sold to Endeavor for $4.025 billion. And I remember coming and doing this show and talking about it all. Now, Endeavor owns WWE and UFC at the same time. Now, I am not a business guy. I'm not good when it comes to this stuff. I usually lean on Frank for this type of information. So let me read to you what the Associated Press has put out as of 4:31 a.m. Pacific time. That's 7:31 Eastern time, because I want to get all the information correct and I don't want to screw this up. WWE and the company that runs the Ultimate Fighting Championship, Endeavor, will combine to create a $21.4 billion sports entertainment company. That's billion with a B. A new publicly traded company will house UFC and World Wrestling Entertainment brands, with Endeavor Group Holdings Inc. taking a 51% controlling interest in the new company. Existing WWE shareholders will hold a 49% stake. The companies put the enterprise value of UFC at, get this, $12.1 billion. Remember, 2016 sold for $4.025 billion, and WWE's value at $9.3 billion. So UFC a little bit more. The new business, which does not yet have a name, will be led by Endeavor CEO Ari Emanuel. Vince McMahon, executive chairman at WWE, who is all the way back now, will serve in the same role at the new company, meaning executive chairman of WWE. Dana White will continue as president of UFC, and Nick Khan will be president of WWE. Here's a quote from Vince McMahon. Together, we will be a $21+ billion live sports and entertainment powerhouse with a collective fan base of more than 1 billion people and an exciting growth opportunity, McMahon said in a statement Monday. He also provided some idea of where the focus of the new company will be, saying that it will look to maximize the value of combined media rights, which is very interesting in my opinion, enhance sponsorship monetization, develop new forms of content, and pursue other strategic mergers and acquisitions to further bolster. What is going on? Well, that's embarrassing. An ad just started to read. In any event, so there's the bottom line. By the way, the new company plans to trade on the New York Stock Exchange under the TKO ticker symbol, which is interesting. No relation to the former Quebec-based MMA organization led by Stéphane Patry, TKO MMA. Shout out Cyril Gane. Its board will have 11 members, with 6 being appointed by Endeavor and 5 being appointed by WWE. I mean, this is wild stuff, right? I mean, this is kind of surreal stuff. So now they're all under the same umbrella. All under the same umbrella. Nick Khan speaking to Axios, of course, as I mention all the time, and GC likes to make fun of me for mentioning this, but I do this with the with the thought of transparency in mind. Nick Khan, my former agent, they talked about the streaming deals that are coming up, the rights deals that are coming up. WWE's streaming deal with NBC Universal's Peacock expires in 2026. UFC's media deal with ESPN, which includes giving ESPN Plus the exclusive rights to all UFC pay-per-views, expires in 2025. I mean, could you imagine if the stars align here and they all end up on the same platform, or even create their own platform? There's just so much to unpack here. And again, it reminds me so much of UFC 200 when this was announced. But who would have thought back in January, there were rumors that WWE wanted to be sold. Then they came out and told us we do, or we're open for business. We're looking for suitors. Then there was the rumor about Saudi Arabia. Endeavor was on the short list. There was Endeavor, there was Fox, there was Disney, there was Comcast, but Endeavor is the one that wins the race, so to speak. And now UFC and WWE are together. And I'm still processing this. And I know there's a lot of people out there making jokes about, oh, you're screwed and all this stuff. I mean, a lot of people very excited to dance on old Helwani's grave. And I guess it comes with the territory when you're the hottest heel in the business. But the point is, I don't know what you guys are talking about because I don't work for WWE. I did the one shot in Montreal at Elimination Chamber, but it's not like I don't work for them. I cover them for BT Sport, and you know, as far as I'm concerned, nothing will change there. And another thing to put to rest, which comes up all the time, is like, oh, you can't cover UFC or you're banned from UFC. I haven't applied for a UFC credential since March of 2020, and as you can see each and every week on the show, no problem getting UFC guests. So, talk of my demise, strongly exaggerated, if you ask me. I think this is wild stuff. I think it's, I mean, it's just another indication of the landscape changing, of the world changing, of the media world changing, and to think now that WWE and UFC are under the same umbrella with some massive, massive personalities and characters. It's a lot to process. I'm very curious to see where it goes from here. Let me ask the guys what they think about this. We can have a nice little chat about this all, because again, I was thinking that we were going to come on here and talk about Roman Reigns as a what? What was he, like a plus 2,200 underdog? What was he?
Yeah, it got ridiculous. Like I think Cody Rhodes, when I checked right before the event was about to start, was like minus 2,500.
Minus 2,500. Everyone, including me. I would have bet my house that Cody was winning. It was a shocking scene, and we could get into that as well. And we could talk about, you know, Marlon Moraes losing to Brendan Loughnane. We could talk about the big Anthony Joshua performance against Jermaine Franklin. We could talk about Anthony Pettis beating Roy Jones, but nothing is bigger than this. And you know what's the beauty about this, guys? The beauty of all of this is no one can get mad at us anymore for talking about pro wrestling on this program. Yeah, it's all one company. That's it. That's it.
Perfect. Does this make you a wrestler?
If you ask me, yes. If you ask me, I'm a pro wrestling journalist now. This is a pro wrestling show. We're going to talk ratings. We're going to talk booking. We're going to talk about it all. This honestly,
we're a dirt sheet.
Now that you mention it, we're the big winners in this deal. I feel like we're the biggest winners. Like when they do the checklist thing, like the winners and losers, winners. I feel like we're the big winners. We're pretty much a dirt sheet at this point. Wow.
Love it. Let's go.
This is amazing.
WrestleMania 40 in Philly, we're all going to drive down.
I mean, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump.
That's what I'm saying.
You know?
I
bring it to us.
It's about 90 minutes away from me. That's easy stuff.
I might be calling Raw tonight.
Who knows?
Imagine. I mean, it's right over there. It's a stone's throw away. I might be calling UFC.
Yeah, we're gonna get you over to the Apex to call UFC.
Can I just make one request? To if they imagine they do WrestleMania at the Apex next year? I mean, could you imagine?
That'd be incredible.
First thing,
yeah, it'd be incredible.
You're correct. Your thoughts when you saw this? Yes, I know Performance Center, but they didn't drag it on for 400 years. Your thoughts when you saw all of this?
Interesting, but I think premature to kind of have any like major takeaways. A lot of this is focused on the business side at the moment for me. I think a lot of people are kind of like speculating and trying to figure out like the crossover of the characters. How does the WWE product influence the UFC product and vice versa? To me, I think that's all very much up in the air and kind of needs to be seen. I think the more interesting aspects of this are the politics, right? Is the sale itself, the price tags that have been estimated for the companies, and also the kind of shakeout of how the executive board looks and who's reporting to who, and who's running what part of the businesses. That's the part that we do kind of have some insight into right now and can kind of look at and analyze. The further down the line, you know, are we going to have a UFC fighter headlining WrestleMania? That part is a little bit nebulous at the moment for me, so I'm not too concerned or too focused.
Oh yeah, the jokes about all of that are a little bit, you know.
Yeah,
we've gotten quite a few of them.
Are we getting John Jones against Brock Lesnar? I mean, that's not even the craziest.
Connor hit it first, did it well. Like we're good after that. Like everybody.
Yeah. Why did you do that, Connor? I didn't even see it.
No, McGregor.
Oh, McGregor. Oh, my
Yeah.
apologies.
Then he threatened Paul Heyman afterward.
Yes, that was crazy. I saw Al Foran, or is it Foran? Is it Foran or
I
Foran?
don't know. He's your
You
friend,
saw him, you
dude.
would know. I mean, geez.
He's the man. I don't
He's
know what
great.
his name is, but he's the man. He's incredible.
Great guy.
Uh,
Never met him. Never met him.
yes. He he was at the post event press conference, and he told me he asked if he can ask Heyman a question as Connor,
Oh,
like
Oh, that would have been
that
fantastic.
feud,
hilarious.
but they shot him down, unfortunately. GC, your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I mean, it's when I first saw it, I was like, wow, this is crazy. But I mean, even now, like 17 hours after we found out, I still don't fully understand everything that's going to come with it. Like, I was
Yeah.
kind of hoping to get some clarity as the days went on, and obviously with this show. But I mean, it seems like a huge deal, and the estimation of how much the UFC is worth now is just insane. I mean, triple for what it sold for 7 years ago or whatever it was. I mean, insane. I mean, it feels like a huge move. Really curious as to what they're going to do, if they renew with ESPN for the UFC. I mean, you mentioned it. Like, if all of this ended up on one platform, like it just feels like they have so much power there. Like, things could really get crazy there.
Oh, I mean, there's a lot because obviously we know that ESPN has a great relationship, um, with the UFC, but now we see ESPN covering WrestleMania. DC was here and all that stuff. Does that lead to a relationship that we all thought could have happened a few years ago with WWE and ESPN? There's just a lot of possibilities, and you're 100% right. This also reminds me a little bit of when Zuffa bought Strikeforce in 2011, and we were trying to figure out, what does this mean? What does that mean? Business as usual, all that. And you come to find out over a year or so, a lot changes and certain people. Now, in this regard, it's not necessarily one taking over the other, right? It's not a merger, so to speak. And so that's a big difference. And so I can see both entities kind of running on their own. But I can also see, by the way, a scenario where there's a lot of integration, right? And there's promotion, and like this is very surface level stuff. But the next WWE pay per view is on May 6th in Puerto Rico, Backlash, and that's the same date as Cejudo and Aljo. I could see maybe those days coming to an end, right? Where they're going head to head, where now they know each other's schedules and they're not going head to head anymore. Like, that's an important thing, because I don't think that makes any sense from a business standpoint unless they find out that there isn't a crossover. But in that AP story, they said that they think there's like 1 billion people or so that it crosses over, or that there's like a mutual fan base, if I read that correctly. So I think those days might be coming to an end. But it's just kind of surreal to see those two logos together, right? Like, all these years where the UFC, and you always kind of felt like Dana White had a ton of respect for Vince McMahon, and he's
Yeah,
always spoken very highly of him. But also, you kind of felt like there was like this healthy competition. You know what I mean? And
for sure.
now with them sort of under the same umbrella, it's wild. Of course, longtime fans of the sport will remember that it's really, like, if you really want to do a domino effect thing, Vince McMahon had to clear The Ultimate Fighter, the first season of The Ultimate Fighter, to air immediately after Monday Night Raw back in 2005 when they were on Spike TV. Like, it was a time buy, and they asked Vince if he was okay with it, as the story goes. And Paul Heyman has told this story on this show, and he said yes, because he didn't really view them as a threat. And so they put the first season of The Ultimate Fighter at 11:05 p.m. Eastern, right after Monday Night Raw. And this is, 2005. Monday Night Raw was obviously super hot. Um, and so think about all the fans that were watching Raw and stuck around to watch The Ultimate Fighter. And of course, The Ultimate Fighter season 1 becomes this big deal. And then, of course, the finale and all that stuff. And that leads to Spike then really coming on board, and it's no longer a time buy, and it opens the door. If he says no to that, if he says, no, I want this nothing near my flagship program, who knows what happens to the UFC all these years. And now here we are with them under the same roof, so to speak.
It's crazy.
Mind-numbing stuff. Mind-numbing stuff.
It's like full circle type stuff. It's insane. I like really had no expectation of this happening. So when it just got like dropped, like, yep, sales done. Here's how much it's for. Here's the estimations, everything like that. I mean, just crazy stuff.
Yeah. I think you touched on something that I'm thinking about, which is how separated are the products and how integrated are the products, right? It would be silly, I think, to not leverage the brand power, the equity that you have of both and try to combine them in some capacity. That makes sense. But it would also be silly to overdo that and to mix up two very successful separate businesses and potentially screw that concoction, that mixture up. So they have a fine line that they need to walk, and it's going to be interesting to see how they do it. But when it comes to the negotiating the TV rights, being able to come to the table to a broadcaster and say, we've got these two properties that are as hot as any sports properties right now, and you can have them both for one price under your roof, that's a very valuable thing for them to be able to do.
Oh, it's huge. And you're right. I mean, even though the WWE ratings aren't what they were in the late 90s, like it is on fire in a day and age where there's no appointment television, where they're getting over 2 million, viewers for all of this. The combined attendance based on what they announced for, this past weekend was over 160,000.
I mean, they
Two
look
nights,
packed out.
80,000 each. Yeah, I mean, they are on fire. And the UFC, as I've said on this show 100 times, is on fire as well. Their pay-per-view could do no wrong. Their live game. I mean, it's like, again, just thinking about the behemoth that this has now become and thinking what Endeavor now runs and owns, like as far as the combat sports world is concerned, like it's just gigantic. Ari Emanuel was at WrestleMania yesterday, and you wonder, what lessons and what applications they will use from their time, as owners of the UFC over the past 7 years and apply it to WWE. There's just so much that can happen. Now, WWE doesn't need any help. They are,
I was going to say,
if anything,
or what things,
or WWE helping UFC, right?
Huge like legacy and business, and having now Vince in what's like seemingly like the number two. It's hard to kind of suss out the hierarchy fully until the roles are clearer. But he's very high in the company. Using a man with that much knowledge and business history, who has run a successful company for this long, could benefit UFC and Endeavor and other parts of the business. I mean, there's a lot that could potentially come from this. It's wild.
I'll tell you what they need to do. The UFC needs to adapt the WWE graphics package, because those, every time I watch, I mean, I am just blown away by how good those graphics are.
Who do you think stands to gain more from this relationship?
I would say UFC.
Because Dana's comment, the way he phrased his statement, almost like they were buying WWE, which I thought was really interesting. It was a bit of an alpha move on his part. And the valuation is a little bit higher for UFC than WWE. But to me, in terms of promotion and glitz and glamour and hoopla, I personally think WWE does a better job of that as far as presentation is concerned. WWE has been doing this for a long time. UFC has come a very long way. They have a producer there named Zach Candida, who I think has done a tremendous job of bringing them up to speed on a lot of stuff, not to mention the other producers that they have there. But I do think that they're not quite on par as far as like the quality of the production. So I wonder if they will stand to gain more from the relationship. And again, I wonder if they're just completely separate entities and they never met. I don't know. This is just a couple hours old now. So anything we say now could be very irrelevant in a short amount of time.
My gut reaction is that I think the audience for UFC has already been exposed to WWE for a very long time and either likes it or doesn't like it and isn't very likely to jump over based on promotion. Whereas with WWE, they skew younger, there are younger fans that consume it. And if you can convert them once they are maturing from younger WWE fans into older potential fight fans, that might be the value add for UFC. So I would assume that they have more to gain from that audience crossover. But what I think will be more interesting is between the combined forces and just the power of the machine that Endeavor kind of owns now. What can they do with audiences that were fans of neither? And how can they get them into the tent by improving their products? So it's very interesting. But I think if we're measuring just between the two where the most kind of overlap or benefit is going to come from, I would imagine that UFC gets more of a potential rub from WWE than vice versa.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is the TV deal.
Huge.
That to me is, I mean, that's worth. It's all about TV rights in this day and age. It's all about streaming rights, linear rights, all that stuff. As you said, bringing that to the table as a package deal. One day, them creating their own network once again, if that's the move. By the way, does the Peacock deal remain? You know, like the Peacock deal is coming up, right? As I mentioned before, and look at the success.
Timeline wise, just to say it, like WWE is up first, right? Their deal is up for negotiation next year. UFC's is 2 years, so they're up first in terms of like existing deal timeline. Now you can manipulate that, right? You can say, hey, we're selling this package in 2 years, you'll have the whole boat, but for now you have this, and you can always make that work. But that's the timeline that we're currently looking at.
So you wonder, with the success that ESPN Plus has had in becoming the exclusive home of UFC pay-per-view in America, does this deal, like last night you could have watched WrestleMania on Peacock for free, right? Like for $4.99. Like there was no extra price. For your sub, it's $4.99 or whatever it is now, $5.99. So, and it's not like ESPN Plus where you're subbing for $7.99 or whatever it is, and then you got to pay $75.
Yeah.
Are those days coming to an end if you're a wrestling fan, right? Because they've had so much success with that. You now give it to someone, you give it to an ESPN Plus. You make a deal, with their relationship. I know this very well. Like, Nick Khan has a great relationship with ESPN. Does that happen? Does that door, do they now become the home of both of these entities? Like, there's just, oh my God, there's just so much there. It's a wild time. It's a fascinating time. You hope that it ultimately, and from our perspective, is good for the performers. You hope that it's good for the talent. If I'm an MMA fighter and I look at that $12 billion number, a lot has changed as far as, the evaluation of the UFC is concerned. How much has changed as far as fighter pay is concerned? You know what I mean? Like, this thing continues to grow. They're now selling sponsorship where you can put your name on the mat. You guys see this?
Yeah, $1,000. And you get the piece of canvas framed and sent to you.
Wait a second. It's $1,000? That's it?
Dude, all right. So I actually thought the exact same thing when I first saw it, but like I think your name is going to be this big.
Yeah, but he doesn't care about that.
You just want your name. You just want your name in the icon.
Wheels turning.
Is that okay? Let me ask you: is that a baller move or is that a sucker move? Because ultimately
it could be both. It could be looked at as both. It depends.
I think it's a sucker move because of how small it's going to be. Like if it was just giant Helwani on there, like then it'd be a baller move.
It's not about that.
He has to pay $10K for that.
It's not about how it'll look on fight night. It's about how you can promote it, right? Because once you have that asset, now you can kind of socially manipulate and figure out how you're going to present it. So that's where it becomes a little bit.
I could zoom in on it.
Exactly. You zoom it in.
You're gonna zoom
hey,
it
my
in,
name's on the canvas.
You know what I thought of when I went and ran that marathon? They have everyone's name that's running it listed on a wall, and it's like 14,000 names, and everyone's taking their picture with like this microscopic name. And I feel like that's what it's going to be like on the octagon. It's just going to be a bunch of black blur around it. And then when you get your framed cut of the canvas, then you're like, oh.
But wait, is there a limit? Like, are they like if 1 million people sign up for this, are 1 million people getting their name?
I need to know what. I need to know what point size font. Like, is it just like 12-point font? Like, literally just that small?
I have a feeling there will be no visibility in real time. It will only be for that.
100%.
But to your point about the pie, right? The pie continues to increase, right? The value of UFC, the value of WWE is now in the 20+ billions range. The pie of what the fighters are getting is maybe the same, maybe a little bit bigger based on reports that are filed. It has grown a little bit, but not nearly at the pace that the size of the entire business has. So yeah, the pie continues to grow, but the fighter pie hasn't.
100%. Like you see that
the same slice. They get the same slice.
Yes.
12 billion is jarring. It is jarring.
By the way, are we surprised that UFC valued more than WWE?
Not after the year that they had during the pandemic.
That's a good point.
Not after the year that they had during the pandemic. The number of fans they have been able to accumulate because of that, I think, is immeasurable. Like, it is measurable, but we don't know it. But it is, the impact of that is immeasurable.
Right.
they have built an entire audience of fans that had no interest, and because it was the sport on, they have built them up. So that was massive for them. And then also you consider, where was I going? I lost my train of thought. But yeah, massive. You consider that they've built a habit. They've continued to increase events, and WWE was great at this. UFC has made Saturday night viewing a habit. It wasn't always, right? It used to be you have to get people to the TVs to watch UFC. You had to promote it. Now it's not. You don't have to promote it. People come. People come no matter what. And so they've built that weekly, every single weekend habit, including Dana White's Contender Series, including all these different products. You must watch it, and the people just continue to show up no matter what they do. That is very, very valuable. That is worth a lot of money.
A lot of people were worried that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia would own WWE. You don't have to worry about that anymore. Obviously, there's other things that you can worry about, for lack of a better word, and think about, but it's all very much fresh. It's all very much evolving. It's all very interesting if you're into entertainment and media and these behemoths coming together. And what about the personalities coming together, right? Like Vince.
That's what I'm wondering. When is like the first like crossover we're going to see like in public happen, like between either fighters or the higher ups that you just mentioned? Yeah, it could get crazy.
287 probably a little too soon, but we had Vince in the front. Perhaps we should have seen this coming a long time ago. We had Vince in the front row at the last Izzy fight, right? Izzy should personally invite him to come back for this one. He had success when he fought Jared Cannonier with Vince in the front row, and that was his first time at an event. I personally know that Nick is a huge MMA fan and a boxing fan, and started as a boxing guy, was Manny Pacquiao's manager, was Freddie Roach's manager. So I'm curious if there's going to be any crossover there. But to be clear, they said Dana White is going to remain as UFC president. They said Nick Khan is going to remain as WWE president. He was CEO, now he'll be WWE president. Executive chairman is Vince McMahon. Ari Emanuel is going to be overseeing the entire thing. I mean, can we talk about, like, do you remember, did you guys watch Monday Night Raw back in the day when Vince came out and he's like, I want to announce someone coming back, and the song was, I'm back and better than ever, and it was Eric Bischoff, and they came and they all hugged on the stage. Does anyone remember that? Anyone?
Vaguely.
I was in 4th grade, and they hugged. Could you imagine if they come in like, our first order of business, we'd like to welcome back to the UFC family, the great Ariel Helwani. I'm back.
You haven't gotten any calls yet?
Yeah, I know. Why is this not in motion already?
Are you teasing us here?
To make things better, I'm back. And what would be my first order of business?
That would be the walkout too.
Apex is closed down.
The heavy strut.
Apex.
Shut the Apex
closed down.
Yeah.
Banners with sponsorships, back. Sponsorships on the shorts, back.
Entrances are just now WWE entrances, right? Like none of the just walking to the cage with music. Now they have to have theatrics.
No, of course not. DC, you're fired.
DC, wow. All right. Okay.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you about DC.
Wait, you have all this power? What are you even back as? You just announced that you're back?
I'm just back. I'm just back in the mix.
He's back.
I'm the face.
What's the first
You're running the press conference.
We're closing the Apex.
You're back from a role you never had in the first place.
Yeah.
But didn't you see DC in Los Angeles?
Yes,
No?
I saw DC. Oh, someone wrote to me on Instagram, it seems like you big up and talk about DC and your friendship way more because you ever notice like he never actually acknowledges the friendship?
Yeah, I've never
does.
Like,
there's no sign of me on his set.
Wouldn't know
nothing.
It even existed if you didn't bring
it.
His
Hall of Fame,
The Hall of Fame was nice. I'll give him that. He went off script. Couldn't even put it in the prompter. He was such a wuss.
Almost a year though.
There I am, media day, Thursday, and I'm walking out of the bathroom, and Sami Zayn is just there, and we have a nice little chat. And he's like, "Oh, we're doing an interview tomorrow." That video was all a shoot. Now they took a lot of the stuff out because I went really inside, and it probably wasn't in my best interest to keep it in. But he said that he thought that DC and I were going to interview him tomorrow or the next day for ESPN. I was like, "No, that's not happening. This and that." Then DC's like, "Let's go for dinner." Never writes me back. Never checks in. This is the best part. Then I go to SmackDown, and he says he's going to SmackDown, and I'm just taking a walk. I heard Bad Reputation play on the loudspeaker, so I decided to go for a walk.
Understood.
And then DC calls me, and he's like, "Oh, why don't you come sit with us?" I'm like, "Oh, I didn't even know you were here." I go sit with him. All right, he's there with some of my old ESPN friends.
By the way, that's a nice gesture. That's where we're at right now.
I'm sitting there for a minute. He goes, "Hey, move to the row below. My cousin is coming to sit here." I was like, "Golly, this guy comes."
Take it back.
Ask me. Then this is the best part. Leaves. I'm sitting in a section by myself. Leaves and doesn't say goodbye. Doesn't say goodbye.
Irish
Just
goodbye
leave.
to you.
They all leave and don't say goodbye. Don't hear from him on Saturday. Then Sunday, he calls me. He's sitting in the front row. He's like, "Where are you at?" I'm like, "I'm in the press box. Like I'm swimming in blood right now because I'm so high up. The nosebleeds of all nosebleeds. I need like little like binoculars just to see what's going on." You're sitting in the front. He's like, "Come sit with me." I'm like, what do you want me to just walk down there and sit with you?" He goes, "Okay, let's go for dinner tonight." In my mind, I couldn't go for dinner because I had to work. But I was like, let me just see if he's actually going to call to go for dinner. Never calls. Says, "Oh, we'll go for dinner or breakfast." Doesn't call about either. I mean, I'm starting to question the whole relationship.
So I just want to go back to the SmackDown. So you were sitting a row in front of him, which that's already trouble because anytime you want to talk, you have to turn around.
He was in his row and then asked him.
I was in a different section.
Right.
He calls me to come sit with him.
Yeah. I'm understanding what's going on here. But when you're sitting there, him and everybody he's with, they all get up and they just leave and don't say a word to you, and you just kind of turn around.
No, we're talking there for like a segment. It was like the last 30 minutes of the show. But at one point, they all leave and not a single one says goodbye. And then I just look back. I'm like,
"Oh, they're gone?
You guys just left? Well, I thought we were sticking around for the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame came on after the show.
They probably had a studio to get to.
What'd you think at first? Bathroom break? Everybody's just...
Yeah, when did you... How long did it take for you to give up?
Like, I called him. He goes, "Bro, I thought you were coming with us." I was like, "Well, you didn't even tap me on the shoulder." I'm sitting there. Everything's happening behind me. I'm sitting there. I'm watching Roman and Cody. Wow. He's cutting the go home promo, and then they just leave.
I mean, he got to the top of the stairs, and he definitely wasn't like, "Where's
He wasn't like, "Where's Helwani?"
Yeah, I thought Helwani was coming with us.
Honestly, I felt like I was set up. I felt like they wanted the shot of me sitting by myself so they can laugh at me on the way out.
Someone has that somewhere for sure.
You think you know somebody, you know?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's credible.
No breakfast, no dinner, nothing?
Yeah, like I was going to come grab you from the airport this morning, and then it's like, no bother. I'll just stay in Los Angeles.
I get it.
Did you really offer that?
Yeah.
Frank? You don't even have a car.
Well, I was going to take one.
Uber.
You were going to Uber down to the airport?
By the way, I may never come back to the studio. This is fantastic.
I just want to
I'm here.
Let Connor and
every time I show up, it's like, "Oh, nice to see you here," as if it's not a regular
No, this is
thing.
great.
Meanwhile,
I might move to LA.
This guy's...
Why can't we just do? Why can't I move to LA at this point? I'm looking at the hills right now. This is fantastic. By the way,
you're speaking my language right now.
This is incredible. Last year, do you guys remember? Last year, I left. I took the 6 a.m. flight. I landed in LaGuardia. I had a horrible situation with my stomach. Then I had to go. Do you guys remember this?
Yeah.
Then I had to go do the show on like no hours of sleep. Why did I do this to myself? I should have just done the show like this. Oh, I bet you in the chat they're saying, "Oh, he's not in the studio. He doesn't care as much." Oh. By the way, can we talk about what a finish, right? I mean, was that not amazing? Saturday night, Sammy and KO, followed by I'm still buzzing. What?
I thought we were talking Sunday.
Well, the whole weekend was just a master class. GC, you love it?
If we're going to talk about anything, we're going to talk about Gunther coming out of nowhere to retain the Intercontinental title. I mean, the man, the myth, the legend, Gunther. I enjoyed it. Like, I don't think I'll ever be like the tune in weekly for Raw. But
you were into it, man. You were
these huge events, man.
You did pull a Helwani.
Yeah. I tried the move to get comfortable in the bed before. I mean, it went late. I didn't expect Sunday night to go so late for Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. And got in the bed. Eyelids started getting heavy. Next thing I know, my alarm clock's going off. I'm waking up. Roman Reigns ended up winning.
You didn't see any of it?
Didn't see a second, but I caught the highlights, scrolled Twitter. It felt like everybody couldn't believe that he won. Myself
Some people hated it.
The next time somebody says, "Let me get comfortable," and stays awake would be the first time ever.
You want me to be honest? You want me to be totally honest?
Never happened.
I was like,
let me get comfortable.
I thought it was like a foregone conclusion. I was like, I think Cody's just going to win.
Oh, so you were
I would have bet my
you were
house.
like accepting the idea you might pass out, and you were like,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. It wasn't like I was like fighting. I was like, I gotta see this. I was like, it's 11:30.
That's
I gotta get up in the morning.
The best part was I got to go backstage a little bit. I'm hanging with Ric Flair. I'm hanging with Stephen Amell,
Oh yeah, the actor.
the actor. Mensch, freaking Wale daps me up, tells me
Wow.
I'm the man.
Wow.
Wale.
Okay.
Yeah, it says
Wow.
next year, Wale Mania, you and me. Wow.
Wale Mania. You're gonna headline
running UFC by then, so
I'll be running it, so I'll be like, sure, just check my schedule, put some time on my calendar. I'll see if I can check it out. What about freaking Mario Lopez? Oh my God, this guy Mario Lopez, unbelievable, so good looking in person. I mean, I was just like blown away by his
unbelievable.
beauty. Maria Menounos back there.
Back there too. Nice.
Everyone was back there. I'm hanging with, my boys, freaking Big E's back there. Shout out TJ Wilson asking me for my thoughts on Izzy. I mean, it's just one big family. And then I'm like, man, you know what? I'm so happy that I have this big family. I go to bed. I get the Roman Reigns exclusive Saturday night. I wake up. I'm telling my wife, this is so great. I'm having so much fun covering this. And then the atomic bomb. You thought that you were on this island of like luxury, and you were welcome, and then just when you thought that you were completely out, they pull you back in.
That trailer guy is going to make this instantaneous.
Yeah, this is good.
He really has it.
Yeah,
he's
working on it as we speak.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited about the possibilities here. I mean, anytime something like this, something seismic like this happens, it's a fun story to follow. And so we'll see. We could speculate all we want, but let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. The UFC and man, it's going to be interesting. You know what they should do? They should get into boxing too. Just control the whole damn thing. Endeavor should get into boxing and freaking buy a Matchroom. Could you imagine
There you
that?
go. Oh,
why? They've got Zuffa Boxing. Why do you need to buy a match?
exactly.
That's a good point.